Hi, everyone. My name is Kyla Bolden, and welcome back to the Beyond Bold podcast. I am so happy that you decided to join me here today. So, if you are new to the podcast, let me give you a little rundown about what we do here at Beyond Bold. So, this podcast is all focused towards figuring out how to build a successful life on your own terms. And that means that we focus a lot on business, a lot on startups, but also the wellness side around entrepreneurship and developing a career that you really enjoy. And so when it comes to myself, I am a founder of a tech company. I've been a founder for over 8 years now, almost 9 years, which feels crazy. And I've raised venture capital funding. I've raised over $1 million. I've been a Google for Startups founder. I was a winner of the Cartier Women's Initiative Award, and I've done a lot of cool things when it comes to my business. However, I often found that the advice that a lot of women get around how to build their business, how to build a life that they enjoy is really like honestly a lot of BS and wrong. So I wanted to create a space where I could talk about some of the things that has really helped me throughout my entrepreneurship journey. And really, when I say entrepreneurship journey, I'm not just talking about inside the office. I'm talking about you as a whole person who is working intentionally to build a business that they love or a career that they love. And that is really what you do inside the office and outside the office. So we talk a lot about ways that you yourself could just become a better, more evolved version of yourself and how in turn that will help you in your business and achieving your goals. So if that sounds like something that you're interested in, definitely stay and continue listening. And if not, it's okay, but give it a try. You might find that you hear something that really resonates with you. But today we are talking all about content habits and tech that is shaping my 2025 and really just some tips and things for you to check out that I think will be really helpful when you build your plan for 2025. Now, when thinking about what to do for this episode, I was tempted, like I was last episode, to do a podcast around goal setting. But there are literally so many podcast episodes out there, videos that you could watch on goal setting. And really, just honestly, over the last couple weeks, I found some amazing pieces of content and tools that I really just want you guys to check out because I think if you utilize some of these tools, they are going to really help you level up in 2025. And I promise you, everything that I'm putting on this list are either books or tools that changed my life or podcasts that really resonated with me. I'm really about 2025 being a little less content heavy, like less scrolling on TikTok, less looking at so many different pieces of content. So if I'm recommending it, I am really, really sure that it's going to help you level up in your personal life or in your business or make you more productive. So definitely check out all the resources I'm going to tell you on this list. So to get started, let's talk about books. I've been reading some fabulous books recently, and I have about 4 recommendations that I want you guys to take a look at. Now, my thing with self-help books before I get started, because I know there's so many lists of books that you should read, and it becomes a little daunting, right? And so before we get started, I'm going to tell you my philosophy when it comes to self-help books, and that is do not read the self-help book if you don't have time. The thing about self-help books that I've realized is that when I'm reading a self-help book, I want the help now. So if I'm not the quickest reader, and I read quick, but like I'm rarely finishing a book in 3 days. Like I'm finishing a book in 2 weeks if I'm reading pretty steady, right? Especially self-help books. They're really big. So my tip for you is actually to listen to the book. Don't worry if people say that like listening to the book is not the same as reading. You could go back and read it. I even sometimes buy the book and listen to it at the same time. So I'm like reading and listening at the same time. But listen to your self-help books. You just need to get the content. The content is the most important thing. And honestly, still tick it off in your Goodreads. It's fine. So the first book I want to recommend is The Gap in the Game by Dan Sullivan. I've talked about this book many times on this podcast, but I really believe it is one of the books that really changed my life around my happiness. like I said before, I've accomplished a lot of cool things in my life, but I've really felt like super proud of myself. And that is because I'm always living in the gap, which is where I am versus where I think I should be. And if you are somebody that strives in their career and their life, has big goals, and I'm sure you are, because if you aren't, you probably wouldn't be listening to this podcast. You have probably fell victim of measuring yourself to an ideal versus looking at the progress of all the things that you've come through, all the progress that you've made, all the things that you've overcome. So this book really teaches you how to live in the gain, which is like really focusing on your progress. And honestly, was a book that really changed my perspective on happiness a lot. So it gave me tactical tools on actually how to do this and how to be more happy as a founder, as a entrepreneur. So I really suggest this book. The second book is Let Them by Mel Robbins. I thought this was fabulous, and it's a new book. You could get it, you could listen to it on Audible, and it's all about the let them theory, which is really the whole basis of like you can't control people. And if you're an adult, in which you probably are, it is never your responsibility to tell an adult how to act. Like they have to want to act that way. And she talks a lot about female friendships, which I thought was really insightful, especially if you're in your late 20s, because that's when female friendships change a lot because everyone is in different places. And I think it's just a really, really amazing book. And I think you could apply it a lot to your business as well. The whole let them idea is the idea of, okay, people are going to act the way they act. They're going to think the thoughts, the negative thoughts about you, regardless. Even the people that we love the most sometimes get annoyed with us. So you have to do what's best for you. And you say, let them when the situation doesn't pan out the way you want, or you feel like somebody's being a little offhanded to you, or you don't like how the situation went. You say let them, and then you say let me. And then the let me part is, okay, you decide how you're gonna act. You decide what the actions that you're gonna take next that are best for you. And I just really think there's so many things that you could apply to this when it comes to business, team building, being a boss, all of that. So I think this book is a really, really a must read or must listen to. The third book is You Are a Badass by Jen Sincero. I read this a really long time ago, but it is one of the best self-help books I've ever read. And it talks a lot about like your mental state and how you can make sure that your inner world is correct so that you could actually live that outer world of your dreams. And yeah, it was just terrific. So definitely check out that. Very much like motivational. So if you're not feeling motivated, I would say like start with You Are a Badass because that book is really, really good. The next one is We Should All Be Millionaires. I cannot recommend this book enough. It's by Rachel Rodgers. And one of the reasons why I love this book so much is because it is really a lot what we talk about here at Beyond Bold about how the tactics and the advice that women are given to actually succeed in business is wrong. And part of that is because the playbook was written from a white male perspective. And if you are not white and if you are not male, and if you are not living in Silicon Valley or one of these big cities, they're not going to work for you. It talks a lot about how you have to network differently as a woman. You have to navigate like getting promotions differently as a woman. And it's not in a way that's like, oh, this is so hard for us, blah, blah, blah. It's just like real tools to get where you need to get to as a woman, especially as a woman of color. And we face things that other people do not have to face. So we have different tactics. We're playing a different game than a lot of the rest of the world. So it's really, really gives a lot of great advice. And the whole sentiment is we should all be millionaires. It's not that hard if you follow a specific playbook. And this book talks a lot about it and gives some really, really good advice. Okay, next up is podcast episodes. So I am a big podcast listener. I have been a big podcast listener for years and years and years. Back when like there was no like podcast store. Like I was listening to podcasts on the internet. So I have a lot of really great recommendations, but these recommendations are especially for making sure that your January is the best January ever to set your mind up for growth and to make sure the rest of your year is good and you're in a good mental state. So the first podcast episode I am suggesting is Rich Little Broke Girls. That's the podcast. And the episode is called 10 Things Every Girl Needs. Kimberly is the host of this podcast, and I have really enjoyed listening to her podcast. I think her episodes are very, very inspirational, but inspirational in a way that like you could still tell that Kimberly is still trying to figure it all out, but yet she's doing it with so much confidence in being a boss. And I think it's just really, really relatable and inspirational to see somebody who is so confident and like just honestly like gives you the raw, honest truth of how you should be navigating different aspects of your life, especially your social life. Why I'm recommending this specific episode is because she talks a lot about just simple things that you, as a woman who is trying to grow their career, grow their business, grow their life, should be doing. Like making sure that you have delusional confidence in your dreams and making sure that you have a good group of girlfriends, but not relying too much on that group, not being codependent. And I just really love this episode. It's also like kind of funny to listen to. She's really entertaining. So check it out. And I'm going to have all of these in the show notes too, guys. So don't worry about like the names and everything. Just look in the show notes. You'll see it. The next one is Ladies Who Launch. This is a new podcast, but I've been loving it. I think they only have 2 episodes out, and the first episode is with Emma Grede, or it might be Grede. I think it's Grede. And she's English and she is an amazing businesswoman. She is one of the founders of Skims. She's the CEO of Good American. You've definitely seen her with the Kardashians. And I have really admired how she's grown and like kind of built this incredible career for herself, especially as a woman of color. It's just been really, really amazing to see. So, this episode talks all about her story. And I always believe that you should learn from people that look like you as well too. And she's a Black woman, so I really, really love that. So whether you are Black or a woman or underestimated founder, I think she's somebody that you should be really, really keeping an eye on. The next one is an episode of Diary of a CEO, and it's the body language expert episode. You should really check it out. It talks a lot about body language tips and tricks that you could use to actually be an effective communicator. And communication is really the most important skill to be able to succeed. If you cannot communicate your vision or communicate your beliefs, you won't be successful just because like our whole world economy is based on communicating, right? And I think especially as a female founder, we face specific things that maybe some of our male counterparts don't face when we're going through business, like critiques on the way we speak or what we wear. There's just our hair. And what I really like about this woman is that she says that she is a recovering awkward person. And she said she grew up and she was always really awkward. It was hard for her to command a room. It was hard for her to make friends. And one of the things that she actually did is decided to study popular people. Her a professor actually suggested to, why don't you study the most successful kids, the most popular kids more so, and figure out how they communicate. And she started doing that, and she really became an expert in body language. And she gives people skills and tips in order to be perceived as more warm and more charismatic. She says charisma is something that could be learned. It's not something that you're necessarily born with, which I absolutely love. So some tips that she gives is like showing your palms automatically make you feel more warm to the people that you are speaking to. Like when you don't show your hands, it sets off like humans' fear instinct. So things like that. Hence, I'm showing my hands a lot in this video. But it's something that I actually always do naturally. But yeah, definitely check it out. I really think it's good. It's a 2-hour listen, so break it up, but everything in it is really, really, really great. I also love Manifest by Tori Simone. This is another podcast that like I listen to mostly all of her podcasts to be honest. And why I love her is that she was an influencer and then she's been a business owner for years now. She has 4 spin studios. And it's really rare that you actually see young people running successful businesses, if that makes sense. And it's not a business that's propped up by her being an influencer. It's just a successful business, like really successful. And I think that's 2 different things because oftentimes what I find what happens is that you get advice from a business owner who started as a really famous influencer and that business is dependent on them being an influencer. Now, yes, Tori DeSimone was and is an influencer, but the success of her business is not due to her being an influencer. So you could really take advice from her as a business owner because of the fact that she's just built a successful business the same way you and me would have to. So I really like her advice, and her advice is not just business advice, it's life advice too, a lot like what we do over here at Beyond Bold. But I would definitely check her podcast episodes out. And the last podcast I want to suggest is How She Did It by Yvanna. I really love this because she highlights mostly people in the creative space, like creative and influencers, but they are all really people of color or people from interesting backgrounds, underestimated individuals. And I think it's not often that those types of people get the airtime that a lot of white influencers get on podcasts, right? So we get to hear their backstories and what they've done and how they've grown their following and grown their content creation. And she's such an amazing interviewer too. So please check it out. I really love those. And remember, all of these podcasts will be in the show notes. Okay, next is tech tools that I'm loving. So I'm a big AI girl, as you know. I hope you guys are too. If you're not, I'm scared for you, to be honest. But here are some tools that I'm really using a lot and have used a lot all throughout 2024 that I think you guys should too. So one of them is ChatGPT. Obviously, ChatGPT is so good. I use it so much in my business. I use it to help me write so many of my emails, and it's still surprising to me that people are not using ChatGPT. And like, don't feel bad if you aren't, because most people aren't. It really makes your life so much easier. I use it from everything from cooking recipes. Like honestly, like I would put a recipe in there and like as I'm baking my bread, I take pictures of it and it like tells me, okay, it needs to, be baked a little bit more. It's fine. I do the same thing with the butter. Like I make my own butter at home. And I like take a picture of the butter and it says like, okay, you need to actually wash the butter more, which means like you need to wash it over water more and stuff. It's really good for things like that. And it's incredible for strategy. Guys, I want you to buy ChatGPT. I want you to buy the monthly subscription. I'm very serious. It will make your life so much better. It is the number one way you're going to level up in your business. Truly, I do not know how people are surviving without using AI. And I know a lot of you guys are. So AI should not be something that you are just using, like every so often, once or twice a week. You literally need to figure out, like, list all the tasks that you do and see if you could get ChatGPT to help you with it. So I really suggest you use that. The other one is Todoist. I've used almost every like task uh tool under the sun, like from Asana to Monday.com to um Basecamp, so many, literally so many. Todoist is really easy, and I find it's the best way to do it. So it's just like a lot of lists that you could create. You could separate your list into categories, and I find it's really the most efficient way to keep track of all the things I need to do. And then the next tool, the last tech tool that I'm going to suggest is Replit. Now, Replit allows you to like talk to a AI agent similar to ChatGPT and helps you build out tools and you could just code on it and yourself. If you're not a coder, it's okay. You could still learn how to build out tools. So I typically like build out like tracker tools, like when I'm trying to track my like whether it's like calories or I'm trying to track my wins for the days. That's what I typically use Replit for. And why I suggest using this is because the world is moving more and more towards like an AI focused economy. It really is, guys. I don't mean to sound alarmed, and this is exciting. But I think it's a really good way for you guys to become confident in using AI to build solutions that make your life easier. And if you're an entrepreneur like me, I'm always trying to figure out ways to make my life and my family and friends' life and my community lives easier. And Replit is a really great way for me to do that personally, but it also helps me spark ideas about different tech that I could build, whether it's for my company or for other endeavors. And it really just helps with like my entrepreneurial mindset. So definitely take a look at Replit. Okay, and then lastly is wellness recommendations. So my first one is around sleep. Guys, I've been focusing a lot on sleep. It's like rest is honestly one of my words for this year. And what I've realized is I'm somebody who could work, and I will literally work to the wee hours of the night and wake up early in the morning. But at the end of last year, I ended up feeling really, really sick because I overworked myself, right? So sleep is a big priority for me. But what I've realized is that I can't go to sleep at 12 and get 8 hours of sleep because I'll be up early. It'll take me a long time to get to bed. So what I'm realizing is that I need to give myself 9 hours from when my head hits the pillow to when I need to wake up. And if I'm like in bed for 9 hours, I will get like 8 or 7.5 hours of sleep. Like sometimes I get nine, but I think the goal is to be in bed for 9 hours. And if you try to just stick to being in bed for 9 hours, you will eventually like recalibrate and be able to get in the routine of being able to sleep for 9 hours, especially if you're coming off a routine like me in which you were sleeping at crazy hours. So 9 hours of sleep. And so another tip is protein. Um, I never really focused on how much protein I need, and it's honestly so important for women, especially if you're approaching 30 like me. So trying to eat your weight in protein in grams, that is just a tip that I found has helped me a lot and has helped me feel clearer, stronger, and also try to get fiber as well too. 30 grams of fiber. There has been an increase in a lot of different types of cancers for young people, like younger people are getting colon cancer, and they've said that like they don't know why it is, but they know that our generation is eating significantly less fiber than is recommended, and it's because of how our foods are made and stuff. So just try to get as much fiber as you can in your diet. And the last thing, which is kind of controversial, is join the gym. And again, this is not an episode that's supposed to, make you be like, oh my gosh, I have to do this, I have to do that, I have to do this. No, I wanted to give you some content suggestions for the new year to get your mind in the right state and to give you inspiration and ideas for you to go live your best life. But I was somebody that did a lot of fitness classes. I did a lot of Legree, I did a lot of Pilates. And here's the thing, unless you're built like a ballerina, doing Pilates twice a week isn't going to do it for you, especially if you're over the age of 18, right? It's really, really important to build muscle. It's really, really important to have high intensity workouts. It's really important to have low intensity workouts. And what I realized is I was spending way more money going to a handful of Pilates and Legree classes. And the amount I was spending on classes were more than like a membership at an expensive gym. So I made the decision to join Equinox, and I'm really excited about it. I was actually a member of it years ago. So I'm excited to get back at it. And I realized that like the amount that Equinox cost is not even close to the amount I was spending on like a handful of Pilates classes a month. So I always say we're richer than you think. So join a gym, join a really nice one, and get weightlifting. It's also a really great way to be social. Honestly, girls, those Pilates classes are not very social at all. I mean, I've made one really good friend from Pilates, but for the most part, like the people aren't that nice. Like join a gym that has people your age and so you could be social and that you could, try different workouts and you could weight lift. So that is my last tip. Okay, guys. So thank you so much for listening. I hope this was helpful. Like I said, I didn't want to do an episode that was like goal setting and you have to do this, you have to do that. I just really wanted to give you some things that you could listen to, watch, read, some habits that you may pick up or may not pick up, some things to think about, some things to chew on for January. Listen, you have big goals. I have big goals too. I actually, don't know really what this year is going to look like. I know it's going to look good, but this year is definitely more of a blank slate for me, which is fun, but very different than other years. And I think it's really easy to get overwhelmed in January of all the different things that you could do. But really, the most important thing is treating your body right, getting your mind right, and focusing on the habits that you're going to do every day to move closer to the life that you want to have. And also, as I said, focusing on your wins and your progress so that you could be happy in the moment. So hopefully this episode was enjoyable for you. Go and listen to and read some of the suggestions that I said, and I'm wishing you the best 2025. I'll be here next week. I think next week we have a episode from me as well as a interview that I'm really excited about. And before I go, please make sure to subscribe to this podcast and send it to two friends. It will make my life if you send it to two of your friends. And if you're listening to this, tag me or tag the On Bold podcast on Instagram. And honestly, tell me where you're from. Like, you could DM me or DM the Beyond Bold podcast. Like, I'm seeing that we have so many listeners from all around the world. Like, we have a lot of listeners in Miami and a lot like in Germany and like several in California and like, of course, all throughout North America. And some in Africa. So I would love to learn a little bit more about you guys and tell me what you want to listen to. Like, this podcast is so great for myself because it allows me to be super creative, which is something that I really crave as a founder. But also, it's really for you guys. Like, I want to be as helpful as possible. So please hit me up, say hi, tell me what you want to listen to. And I look forward to seeing you next week. Bye.